Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Victoria and I talk about all things related to the major leagues from Scotland, and today we're talking about the future of the Arizona Coyotes. So arguably the hot topic of the NHL right now. Obviously the Arizona Coyotes have faced more adversity in their already long-running history of facing challenges as a franchise. So today we're diving into what is next for Arizona as a franchise in the NHL. So the Arizona Coyotes actually began as the Winnipeg Jets during the expansion in 1972. They were one of the 4 teams that came from the World Hockey Association when it folded, and the Jets were the best team in the WHA. However, this didn't translate into the NHL and they didn't find the same success. They relocated from Winnipeg to Phoenix for the 96-97 season, and they were renamed the Coyotes because of the connection to Native American culture in Arizona. There was a lot of buzz surrounding Arizona joining the NHL at the time, but unfortunately problems have followed the franchise for a while now, and this is just another curve in the long journey that has been the decline of the Arizona Coyotes. So the team originally started off in Phoenix, and then in 2003 Glendale became their home until last season when the City Council didn't renew its arena lease. So instead they've been using the 5,000 seated Mullet Arena, which is obviously just not good enough for an NHL team. You need the big rinks, you need to be bringing people in, and this just wasn't doing anything for the marketing of both the team itself but also the league more in general. So they came up with a plan to build a new arena in Tempe, and it was going to be part of a $2.1 billion entertainment district. However, that proposal was rejected by voters this week. Following this vote, the team said that its future will be evaluated by our owners and the National Hockey League in the coming weeks. So it looks like there's going to be a decision on this pretty soon. I don't think this is going to drag out over the next season or multiple seasons. It looks like this is going to be sorted before the next season starts. So it's either going to be that somehow they come up with a miraculous plan to save the franchise in Arizona, or and what's looking more likely is that they will relocate. Gary Bettman issued a statement that the NHL is terribly disappointed by the results and that we're going to review with the Coyotes what the options might be going forward. They had sought to build a 16,000 seat arena within an entertainment district on land at Rio Salado Parkway and Priest Drive at the west end of Tempe Town Lake. It was 46 acres of city-owned land and it was 2 miles away from the Phoenix Sky Airport. This proposed district included 2 hotels, a theatre and thousands of residential units, as well as a gambling component, which makes sense as the owner of the Coyotes also owns casino hotels in Las Vegas and Nevada. One of the main promotions of this was that 1.5 million tonnes of trash which is on the site would have been removed, and it was very expensive to do so, and so it was part of the proposal was that if they were given this land they would be removing the landfill aspect of it, which of course you would see as a positive thing. And this vote really was basically the last attempt to keep the team in the area. There was always going to be problems. There was a lot of opposition towards the proposal. People wanted the area used for a different reason. They didn't want public funds to be used, and they were also concerned about traffic congestion. So there was always the potential that this wasn't going to work out, but the franchise seemed pretty hopeful that they would receive the vote to go ahead with the plan. However, that just wasn't the case. Now, I know that there's a lot of discourse that Gary Bettman and the NHL will do anything to keep a team in Arizona, and to an extent I can't blame them because there's definitely a potential market there for a hockey team. And it's really tough to see a team go, and you know, I'm not an Arizona fan by any means, and I've definitely chirped the team in the past, but I really feel for the organisation and for their fans. And although their fan base might be smaller than a lot of other franchises in the NHL, it's still a decent number of very loyal and committed fans, and they do have fans worldwide too, so it's unfair to be making fun of this situation now that it's reached such a low point. And I truly do feel for the organisation and for the fans, because I can't imagine how it would feel knowing that your team is probably going to be removed from the area. I feel the same way for Oakland Athletics fans, obviously in that recent thing where they're relocating to Las Vegas. I feel the same way for them. You can acknowledge that something doesn't work anymore, but still have sympathy for the people affected, so that's kind of how I feel about this. It's also important to remember that just because somewhere isn't the biggest hockey market, it hasn't had an influence. Austin Matthews probably wouldn't play in the NHL if it wasn't for the fact that he grew up watching the Arizona Coyotes. Imagine that, like a league without Austin Matthews in it, and all because this franchise existed. So what happens now? Where do they go from here? So unless they can come up with some other plan B, which I'm just not sure what they could come up with at this point, this was really a last-ditch attempt, it's likely that relocation will be the option. And I know that certainly Canadian fans and a lot of other fans too were really eager for Quebec City to have a team again. I personally don't think that will happen. I don't think that the league itself would want another Canadian market to be open, and even without that, I don't think it makes any sense to have another East Coast team, because ideally you want to keep the franchise in the same division because they've finally evened up the numbers with the expansion involving Seattle, and it wouldn't make sense to have uneven numbers again between divisions. So it would mean that an East Coast team would have to relocate, and I really can't see any of the teams in the East wanting to move west. I just can't see that. That seems like such an upheaval when there's other options for a relocation spot for the Coyotes to go to. So Houston has definitely been a favourite, and I totally get why. It's a standout contender. They have a hockey-ready arena, although the facility is owned by the owner of the Houston Rockets, so it wouldn't belong to the team, which has detriment in terms of revenue for the club itself. However, Houston has a good market for sports teams, and I definitely think another major league team could fit in to Houston, so I definitely would be in favour of that. Personally, my favourite idea is Salt Lake City. I'd like to see an NHL team in Utah. I think it's one of the strongest options. They have a building there that's ready to play in. I feel like it's a similar kind of developing market to Vegas, and the Vegas Golden Knights have gone down so successfully there as a new team, so it could be really similar. It's not a traditional market like Quebec City would be, but in this current era of hockey, sometimes the more non-traditional markets are actually more successful. I think Vegas is a prime example of that. And also it would mean that the Coyotes could stay in the same division, so it wouldn't cause an uneven distribution of numbers between divisions. It would mean that they were still out west. It just makes a lot of sense, and I think there's something really fun about the potential of a Salt Lake City-based NHL team. I also know that Kansas City and Atlanta are viable options, but I mean, Atlanta's kind of tried and failed before, and Kansas City I'm just not quite sure on. Personally, I'm really sold on Salt Lake City, but I could also see Houston being a really good option. Overall, it just really sucks that there has to be the potential for relocation, but there's been so many problems in Arizona for years. This is kind of just it culminating now. Like, there's been issues for over a decade there. Basically, for most of the lifespan of the franchise as it is, there's been adversity and challenges, and so sometimes you have to accept that when the market just isn't there, it just isn't there. But it's still a shame for the people that are so invested in the organisation, of course. But just looking at it from a marketing business point of view, it doesn't make sense to have a team in Arizona anymore because you've tried it and it hasn't worked. It's the same reason I feel that way about Atlanta. I think somewhere new like Houston or Salt Lake City would add something fun to the league. It would bring new people in, and ultimately it's a business. The league is a business. So as much as, you know, I completely feel for everybody affected by it, I can also understand that they've tried their best to keep it there, and perhaps maybe it's time to move on. So those are my thoughts on the current situation with the Arizona Coyotes. Comment down below, what do you think? Will they come up with some plan B? Will they relocate? And if so, where do you think they should go? Let me know any of your thoughts down below in the comments. I also hope you're enjoying this kind of different content. This is what I'm trialling out something new over the off season for content that is based on across all the major leagues. more research based type things. This is what I'm trialing out, so let me know. Like, is it weird me talking about the Arizona Coyotes as a Toronto fan? I don't know, tell me. So that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will be back very soon with more Major League chats from across the pond. Bye, guys.